Alright, number 17, this will finish up this section. We have a rectangular auditorium. It seats 2,928 people. You want, or we're told, the number of seats in each row exceeds the number of rows by 13. Find the number of seats in each row. So, what we have, the picture is, we have a rectangle, some auditorium. And basically they're telling us the area. If you multiply the number of rows by the number of seats in each row, kind of like length times width, that will give you the area. So it's telling us that 2,928 people can fit in here. The rows are going to be going across, so we're going to call this rows. We're going to call this seats. Okay, so the number of rows times the number of seats in each row gives us this. So this is just like an area formula. Number of rows times the number of seats in each row gives us 2,928. Okay, then we're given another representation for seats in rows. So the number of seats in each row is more than the number of rows by 13. So we have another equation. Seats is more than the number of rows, equal to the number of rows plus 13. Okay, so if you know how many rows there are, if you add 13, okay, then you'll have how many seats are in each row. So we have an equation, excuse me, equation that relates seats and rows together. So we have two unknowns, R and S. We have two equations. We can solve it. We're going to use substitution. We're going to substitute the equation for seats, R plus 13, in this position here, and then we'll solve this problem. So we have R times S. Now in the place of S, we're going to replace it with R plus 13, and then that equals 2,928. We're going to do distributive property. R times R, we get R squared. R times 13, get a positive 13R. And then this is equal to 2,928. Alright, this looks like quadratic, so again, we're going to be using factoring or quadratic formula. I'm going to set one side equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract and move this 2,928 over. So we have R squared plus 13R. When I subtract and move that over, this will be a negative or minus 2,928, and that equals 0. Okay, so since rows and seats have to be a whole number, I can't have like 13.2 rows or something like that. I'm going to see if this factors. I think that's going to be the best. So I'm going to multiply a leading coefficient, which is a 1, times this number. 1 times 2,928 is going to give me 2,928. And then from here, I want to list all the factors of 2,928. Now, this is a big number, so it's going to be hard to list them. So I'm going to use a calculator to find that list. But I do know the first one will be 1 times itself, which will be 2,928. This is even, so you can get 2 times, let's say that would be 4, 1, it will go into 29, I guess I'm doing this backwards, 2, they're going there once, 4, going to 12, 6 times. So these are the first two, but I'm going to show you how to get the whole list in the calculator. I'm not going to write them all down, but I'm looking for the two factors that when you subtract them, you will get 13. The second number tells you what to do, so we're going to subtract to get 13. So how do I get that list in the calculator? I'm going to pull my calculator, turn it on. I'm going to go to y equal. I'm going to clear out what I have, and I'm going to type this number that I want to divide or factor, 2,928. I'm going to tell the calculator to divide by x. So x is a variable, and basically the calculator is going to plug in different numbers for x, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, and it will give me all the numbers or all the factors. So I'm going to do second table, and this is of them in the list. So I'm not starting at 1, so I'm just going up. So 1 in itself, 1 in 29, 28, and then I just did the second one. So 2 and 14, 64. And so if I subtract those numbers right now, they're way too big. I'm not going to get 13. So I'm going to continue to arrow down, and you only would focus on the whole number combination. So like 6 and 488, you wouldn't do 5 because that's a decimal, or 7. But I'm focusing on the whole numbers, and I'm trying to see when we get to 13. So again, the difference between these two is still very large. I'm going to continue going. And as you go down, notice that this side is increasing, this side is decreasing, the numbers are getting closer together. So I want to find when the difference is 13. So still too big. Continue. I'm going to keep going. Getting closer together. Should be almost there. Okay, so 48 and 61. That's probably going to be the end of our list. But let's double check. 48 and 61. If you multiply those, you should get this. And if you subtract 48 from 61, you do in fact get 13. Alright, so this will factor. These are my two factors. So 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to split up this R, 1 here, 1 here, and then add the two numbers we found, 48 and 61. And then I'm going to figure out my signs. So you can use a little math intuition and figure out, okay, if I'm subtracting these two, which one needs to be bigger to get a positive 13? You can figure it out that way, or just go left to right. So the first sign is your bigger number. So out of 48 and 61, 61 is bigger. So it's going to get a positive. That's the first sign. The second sign tells you if they're the same or different. So negative means different, and then positive means same. Now, if you know another way to factor, you can do that. If you don't like this, you can also do quadratic formula. That will work as well. But the second sign is telling us that they're different. So if this is positive, this has to be negative. And so here are our factors, and then we set them both equal to 0. And then we solve R 61 equals 0. So I would add 48, and that will give me number of rows equal 48, which looks good. And then over here I would subtract 61, which will give me number of rows equal negative 61, and that's not possible. We can't have a negative 61 rows, so that's an error. So we can have 48. So if we have 48 rows, and we go back up here and we plug in 48, we add 13, that'll give us 61. So that's going to be the number of seats in each row. And so we can get both answers that way. So we want to know how many seats are in each row. It's going to be 61.